My name is Cristiane Perone. I'm a senior consultant at Troika, and I'm here today to share something about the new competences that we need to have to teach young learners nowadays. Well, let's start thinking about these young learners. Who are these young learners, right? When we think about young learners, according to the literature, young learners are children from the age of 6 up to 11 or 12. Then we have the very young learners, which would be considered our students from the educação infantil. But mostly we are talking about students from the those early years in the fundamental, right, or fundamental 1. So what about the profile of these young learners? I'm going to share with you here some of the characteristics of these young learners based on recent trends, right? Please bear in mind that these characteristics may vary across different regions, different contexts, obviously based on cultural and socioeconomic factors, right? But when we understand these specific characteristics and the needs that our young learners have in the context where they are, it helps a lot us teachers to design successful learning experiences for our students, right? So it's essential to think of these characteristics. So what are some of these characteristics? You can, well, obviously say that they are technologically proficient, right? In the year 2023, young learners are highly likely to be proficient in using technology, any kind of technology you can think of, because they've been growing up in a digital age, right? So they are used to using computers, tablets, smartphones, and I mean, all the social medias that you can think of, not only for learning, although we can still help them with these tools, but definitely for entertainment and communication, right? They are connected and global-minded. What does it mean? That these young learners that we are talking about have greater access to global information and different perspectives because of the internet and because of social media, right? They are aware, they are more aware of global issues, cultural and current events, because they are more exposed to all the information that we can think of, right? And this exposure to different information contributes to their understanding, and this is something different if we think of the young learners that we used to have like 10 years ago and the young learners that we teach nowadays, right? But it also contributes to their ability to connect and collaborate with their classmates, for example, right? They are multicultural. And we hope and we work for them to be also more inclusive, right? Because when we say that they are multicultural, we are thinking about exactly because they are more exposed to different types of information and ideas, and because of this global mind, they are supposed to be open to a more diverse ideas, right? And we, in our classrooms, in our schools, we can work with that. We can foster a sense of tolerance. We can work on respect, because they are open to this, to the different, right? The kids are. Then we have to think if we are also tolerant, and if we also respect at the same level. They are more environmentally aware. What does it mean? That they are more concerned about the environment and issues like sustainability. I think when I grow up, I don't want to buy a car. That's what we hear from them, right? Or maybe recycling for them is something so natural, right? And we can take this into consideration when we plan our lessons. They are more aware also of their social and emotional needs. What does it mean? That they recognize the importance of their own well-being and mental health, especially in this post-pandemic moment, right? For us, the implications in our classrooms are that we can prioritize strategies and resources to support social, emotional well-being of these young learners. And they are more collaborative and interactive. It's part of the essence of this generation. We're not going to talk about different generations, but if you work with young learners at that age range that I mentioned, you will see that they have these tendencies to be more collaborative. They interact more, and we have to take this as an advantage to our lessons, right? These are obviously some of the characteristics, because it's one angle of looking at their profile, right? But because of this, we have to consider and we have to understand that there are new competences, because we are talking about a different way of looking at things, different compared to 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago. And if they see things from a different perspective, we have to use these new ideas and this new way of seeing things when we teach them, when we plan our lessons and we teach them. So what are some of these new competences? I'm going to list some of them. Obviously, it's not all of the new competences, because we are looking from one angle. And then I selected 3 of these new competences that will impact our lessons, okay? So some of these new competences, they have to be, we have to work on digital and visual literacy. So literacy is not only knowing how to read and write anymore, right? When we talk about literacy, we are considering this broader perspective. Multimodal communication. because we are talking about technology, we are talking about social media, we are talking about communication, intercultural communication, critical thinking and problem solving, as well as collaboration and teamwork. Because remember that these kids are more collaborative, they are more interactive. So these are competencies that we have to bring into our classrooms, right? Emotional intelligence and global citizenship, okay? When we think of these new competences, and I told you that I selected 3 of them because they, I believe they impact directly in our lessons. The idea is that we develop these competences to promote a more successful learning experience to our students. That's what we want. That's what we teachers want, right? We want to help them learn, obviously, but learn successfully. It's not learn by simply memorizing things, although memory is an important part of learning, right? But it's not only that. We want them to really have an enjoyable experience when they are in our classrooms, right? So what I selected from this list, we are going to work with visual literacy. We are going to work with emotional intelligence, because we'll think of social emotional learning. And we are going to, because we have here critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and teamwork, we are going to look at some of the characteristics of project-based learning, right? Because we know that project-based learning will definitely help our students develop these competences, right? So let's start with visual literacy. Why is visual literacy important? We have here some of the reasons to work on visual literacy. So obviously, when we think of communication, because if we're thinking of literacy, we are thinking of getting the message across, right? So communication, because being able to effectively communicate and express the ideas, thoughts, emotions is essential, not only via linguistic resources, but also using visual forms, right? And by developing visual literacy skills, we are helping our students use images, drawings, any other visual elements as a means of self-expression, right? And this is a way of promoting communication, allowing them to communicate their understanding of a situation. And we know, because we work with language, so we want them to be able to express themselves using other languages, let's say. So visual literacy is really important. We are going to see in a moment some practical ideas to use in the lessons to help them develop this visual literacy, okay? Then we have comprehension and interpretation. And why is that? Because visual literacy helps young learners to understand and interpret visual information more effectively. If we think of all the digital elements that we have, These images, videos, infographics are everywhere. And being visually literate allows children to understand and make sense of these elements that they will find everywhere, right? Not only in the course book, not only in a learning environment like a digital learning environment that they are going to use, but they have to be able to analyze and interpret these images, right? Understand the meaning, and most importantly, extract relevant information, right? Well, critical thinking. If they are if we have so much information, so many images, we need to encourage our young learners to think critically and analyze the visual content that they will find, right? They have to learn to question and evaluate a text, a piece of text, a message, maybe a picture, right? And this ability to critically analyze visuals helps children become more aware of what they are consuming in terms of media, right? And they will understand better what exactly they are being exposed to. Multimodal learning means that this, because, well, they are exposed to diverse types of visuals, we are going to help them read these visuals, because we read an image, like read an image, right? It's not only the written word that we are going to teach them how to read, but they are going to read these images and understand the reason why is this image being used here. What could be a different use for that? And later on, because we are talking about literacy, they will produce content as well, right? When we ask them to produce a piece of writing, when we ask them to produce an episode for a podcast, for example, a short video, they are going to understand the reason why they choose certain images. Cultural awareness, obviously, visual literacy exposes learners to visual representations of different cultures, right? Different cultures, different communities, different historical periods, especially when we want to work. And then we're going to see later on when we develop certain projects. Let's think about our city like 20 years ago. So we ask students to compare pictures of their city, for example, right? And finally, creativity and innovation. Visual literacy helps learners develop creativity and fosters this innovative thinking, right? When these young learners are visually literate, they can generate and communicate their ideas using visuals more easily. So it helps imagination. It encourages them to experiment with different artistic techniques, for example, and they become more creative. When we think of hands-on activities, it helps them a lot, right? Some ideas. There are a number of activities that we can do to develop visual literacy, obviously. I brought 3 examples of activities that we can do. One for very young learners, that could work for children at the age of 4, 3, 4, 5, that would be good, which is this one here. When we work, a simple activity of matching pictures. We have an illustration, and we have the real picture. I mean, the picture of a real, in this case, let's say that we are working with animals, and students have to match the illustration. So it's a drawing, like a simple drawing, with the picture of the real animal. So as you can see here, you have the illustration of a lion, and then you have the real lion, right? The same thing with the elephant. So why is it important? We are talking about very young learners. Imagine your learners at the age of 3 or 4, and they have to do this matching. You know, obviously for older kids, that would be super simple, but not at this age, because we have this thing of understanding if it's a real image or if it's an illustration, if it's a drawing. And you can do this maybe using a memory game that they can play. If you have cards, they can play. And then you can vary the dynamics. Obviously, it could be a memory game played in pairs. It could be a memory game, or like a treasure hunt, that they have to find the real animal. They have the pictures, they have the illustrations, and then they have to like run around and find the real picture, right? This is one way of working and helping students develop visual literacy. As they grow, we have the see, think, wonder routine, which is wonderful when we think of visual literacy. Why is that? Because it will encourage students to make careful observations and interpretations of what they see. So it really helps when we have those pictures in the course book, real pictures, to open the unit, for example, and then we can like use a whole lesson to explore the picture. And this is one way of doing this exploration, using this see, think, wonder technique, right? It helps stimulate curiosity. It's a really nice routine that we can establish, and it works for those students from the age of 6, definitely, onwards, right? We can always do that, but especially for the younger ones, like at the age of 5 or 6, we can do step by step to help them understand how it works. The first question, what do you see, is like a factual question, because we want students to think carefully about why something looks the way it does. Because immediately when we look at a picture, we start inferring things, right? But this first stage is like, what do you see? So look at this picture and let's explore, right? This is the first moment that we're going to ask them to describe exactly what they see. The second moment, what do you think about that? So in the second step, when students describe what they think about what they are seeing, we can ask follow-up questions. That's because what they think, well, it is still a bit factual, but we want to encourage more opinions of what they are seeing, right? So let's imagine, what do you think is going on there? If you look at this image that I brought here, what do you think is going on here? Why are you saying that? What do you see that makes you say that, right? Helping them explore more elements that maybe are not in the scene, but we are helping them imagine these elements, right? And then, what does it make you wonder? In this third step, we are going to help students articulate what they are wondering by asking them maybe more follow-up questions and to help them understand and imagine. And this is one way also of helping them becoming more creative, right? We know that images like this we can do lots of activities with only one image, right? Follow-up activities of this could be, is there someone looking at this boy? What could be a possible dialogue between the boy and this other person? Is the other person also climbing the tree? Where is this person? Who is this person in relation to the boy? And then with only one simple image, we can do a lot. And another activity, this one for older learners, it works with young learners, not very young learners, but maybe learners at the 4th or 5th grade, which is this visual representation. This is that technique that you probably know when for more adult learners, right? Maybe there is something going on, or you are participating in a meeting and there is someone registering the meeting or the ideas of the meeting, instead of using words, drawing, right? It's not the same as like you tell a story and you ask students to draw their favorite part. It is, the visual representation means that you are telling the story and students are drawing, they are registering the parts of the story while we were telling the story. It's at the same time. That's why it's like real time taking notes. They are doing this simultaneously. And the idea of visually represent what you were saying, it works, for example, during a discussion. Instead of taking notes of the discussion, let's say that you group students and they have to answer a question, they have to come up with 3 different possibilities to solve a problem, let's say. Instead of taking notes, like writing words. They can draw. So they are discussing, they are talking about that, and they draw, right? So that's why it works with older students, because maybe when they are too young, they will definitely concentrate on their drawing and they won't discuss anything. So that's why it works with older students, right? Then, remember I told you, I selected 3 of those competences. Visual literacy was the first one. The second one, social and emotional learning. Why is it important? And here I brought, when we think of social emotional learning, or SEL, the SEL, why is it important? Because we need a supportive classroom climate. And when we have a supportive classroom climate, we know that it's going to help students to feel emotionally safe, part of a community of learners, motivated and challenged. This type of environment creates a strong foundation for students to engage fully and take academic risks. And this includes community building, belonging, and emotional safety, and student-centered discipline. So if you remember some of the characteristics that we mentioned at the beginning, social emotional learning is essential nowadays, right? Remember that these students are more aware of their emotional needs. They are more interactive. They need this, and they need to develop problem-solving skills, teamwork. So this is one of the ways to do that, right? And we know that when we have these supportive classroom, things work better, things work smoothly, right? These 2 ideas were taken from the source. You can see the source here. When we talk about social emotional learning, the idea is that we integrate social emotional learning into academic instruction, right? And we promote these opportunities for students to practice and reflect on social and emotional competences, such as perspective taking and developing a growth mindset. So there is an example here. Teachers might incorporate partner and group activities. I know we do that already, but we've been doing this, maybe not very worried about the abilities this simple grouping students can have, the impact that grouping students can have in our classrooms, because we know it's going to promote relationships, communication skills, effective teamwork, right? And how can we do that? First of all, we have to build a positive classroom climate. And when we say positive, it means safe, right? Inclusive. Students need to feel that they are safe there. They can make mistakes. They can try things. Obviously, it works for all ages, not only young learners. It works with teenagers, with adult learners. We need to have this positive classroom climate. How can we do this? We can establish clear expectations, what we are going to do in terms of lesson. So short-term objectives. Today, this is what we're going to learn. And then at the end of the lesson, we go back. Let's check what exactly we still need to work on, what is okay. It goes without saying that we have to promote respect, tolerance, respect. We have to encourage participation. We have to encourage collaboration, right? These are, I don't want to use the word simple because, well, maybe the simple things are the most difficult, but these things will create this safe space where students feel comfortable to express their emotions and opinions without the fear of being judged, right? We need to help students identify and understand their emotions by incorporating activities that promote, here we can use the word literacy again. So these activities can promote emotional literacy, right? Provide students with opportunities to express their feelings using discussions, artistic expression, because when they express their opinions, we know that they will also express their emotions, right? If you teach very young learners, we always have that unit to talk about feelings, happy, sad, well, you name it. So this is the content of one unit, but we can use this like, you know, those activities that students have to draw like a happy face. You can do this when they arrive to the lesson, maybe at the door. How are you feeling today? This is one way of doing that. So if it's part of the routine, the students will understand that their emotions are welcome to your classroom, right? We can, well, and to help social emotional learning, we can set goals clearly and go back and see, well, so we said that for today's lesson, we would do this. If we value the process, not only the final product, we can discuss how students are progressing in terms of learning, right? And again, we somehow we understand that some students may feel frustrated, well, because I wanted to do everything, but we couldn't do it today. Let's see what we can do in the following lesson, what we can do next week. And we rearrange things. We are teaching students that this is an important part of life, because many times we plan for some things, but we are not able to do all of those things that we planned. So we have to rearrange, we have to replan, we have to change things a bit in order to achieve our final objective, right? And collaborative problem solving. One way of working with problem solving situations collaboratively is by using some project-based learning, right? Again, if you remember what we had in the beginning, some of the characteristics, remember that we said that these students are more collaborative, but they need to develop those competencies. So problem solving, we had some of the characteristics here. Let me see if we can go back. Look, critical thinking, collaboration, teamwork. These are some of the competences that when we decide for project-based learning, it gets easier because naturally projects allow students to develop those competences, right? Well, here I didn't ask the question, why is PBL important? So I'm saying that PBL is important because it engages and motivates students. Again, taking into consideration your student's profile, right? Project-based works with hands-on, real-world projects that are relevant and meaningful. We are going to see some of the steps for project-based learning, but remember that you don't have to start 100% with PBL. You can start, slowly. Let me choose some of maybe the main parts of a project, right? And as things develop, you incorporate and you deepen the steps in each project, right? But it definitely helps the students become more curious, interested. They ask lots of questions. They want to read things because they are going to research the topic they need. So it's definitely interesting for them. It's definitely engaging for students, right? It is important because it develops critical thinking and problem-solving skills. We've been thinking about that, right? Project-based learning encourages the students to think critically, analyze information. And then we go back to the literacy, visual literacy that we want them to develop. So they analyze information, they solve problems, right? When we use projects, students have the opportunity to apply their knowledge, their skills creatively to solve problems, to solve real life problems, right? And it's going to foster different skills and different problem-solving abilities. So important nowadays in any context. It's important because it promotes active learning. So projects shift the focus from that more passive way of learning to something more active, because we want students to participate. Students become more active, right? They take ownership. That's an important word. That's a key word when we work with projects, this ownership of their learning process. It's super important, right? They have to make decisions. They are engaged, so they know what they want. They know what they have. If there is this driving question, what exactly I have to find, what kind of information I have to look for, right? It's important because it enhances collaboration and communication skills. So you see how things are connected. Again, we are talking about communication. And in our classrooms, I know it's impossible not to think of communication. So projects will usually involve collaborative group work, teamwork, communication. They will develop interpersonal skills. So they need to learn how to collaborate, how to share ideas, how to negotiate. It can be really hard negotiating, right? And how to work effectively with a team. Essential skill for life, right? And they will develop these communication skills by presenting their projects, articulating their thoughts and ideas to different audiences. And again, you can start in simple terms. So maybe the first project they will present to their classmates. Maybe the second one they can present to another group, right? Depending on the topic, they can present to other levels in the school. And all this will contribute to developing these communication skills. Well, it is important because it integrates content across subjects. Many times we are working with the language, but depending on what they are going to research, they will integrate other areas of knowledge, right? And this interdisciplinary approach fosters connections between concepts, helping students see the relevance, and another key word here, the applicability of their learning across areas. Many times you might have asked yourselves, but why am I learning this? Maybe in science lessons or maths lessons. And then if we are using projects, we help students see this connection. So applicability is essential. That's why I said it's a key word, right? If they can apply that, if they see this applicability, it becomes relevant. If it's relevant, students are engaged. You see how things are connected. And I mean, finally, but not less important, it's important because it promotes lifelong learning, right? And that's what we want. We want all our students to be lifelong learners, because projects will oftentimes mirror real life situations, real life challenges, and they will help our students develop skills and attitudes that they need when they leave the classroom, right? Not only when they are with us in the classroom, but when they leave the classroom. How can we do this? Again, I told you I put here the basic steps of a project, right? If you want to know more, we have a lot of literature about project-based learning. So how can we do that? How can we start? We have to start with the definition, right? So in the definition, we usually work with this driving question. Sometimes you can call it a big question for the younger ones, because that's the question, I mean, that we want to know. Why are you curious about something? What do you want to know, right? And the definition here has to do with the learning objective. So whenever possible, we can give students the option of the project. So what do you want to know about, right? Then we have the development, because we are going to understand, okay, what exactly we are going to produce here? What are the steps of this project, right? Where exactly we want to get. So one of the projects I mentioned already, we have research projects, we have presentations, we have group collaboration, right? Hands-on experiments, multimedia productions, community service projects. That's very interesting. Let's say that you ask your students to think, you're working with clothes, for example, and then it's winter time, and let's think of a campaign because we need to help people, more vulnerable people. That's a wonderful project, and it goes beyond the classroom, beyond the school, right? It's something that we have to discuss. We think of how we are going to do that, and then students produce. That's the moment of production here, right? When we think of when we are in the development moment, we have to scaffold the process, right? So whenever possible, break down the activities into manageable steps. So instead of, I gave you the example of the campaign, right? Let's donate clothes. So this is the final product. How am I going to get there? What are the manageable activities, the manageable steps that we are going to have? It will depend on how much time I have to get there, my final objective. Because then I can help students, I can provide support throughout the process, right? The presentation is essential. So there should be some kind of presentation. And some reflection as well that we can do in the assessment moment, okay? We need to have these moments to help students reflect on their experiences. And again, when we help them reflect, we are also helping them think of their learning experience. So why was it successful? What would you do differently if you had to do this again? They can analyze. Remember that analyzing is also super important for them. So the moment of assessment is not necessarily assessing like, let's assign grades. We are not talking about that. We are talking about assessing their experience in the project, right? Let's think of an example. You can virtually think of, ideally, students bring, you know, those questions that students ask you that sometimes you say, that's a wonderful question. Depending on the age you teach, maybe they are going to, they are, you know, coming to class and then they see a caterpillar. That's, I mean, a classic example, right? But then you say, let's say they are 5 years old, and okay, what happens with the caterpillar? You can tell the story, you can research, you can do some, you can use some drama techniques and help them physically represent what happens. So the caterpillar eats lots of things and then it becomes a butterfly, right? It really depends on the age of the students and how much time you have. That's really, really important. We have to think of how much time we have, because there are projects that go on for months, and sometimes we don't have this. What do I do? Okay, so let's do something simple. There is nothing wrong about that, right? I can see something here on the chat. You can present a fashion show. Exactly. This is something that they are going to produce, right? With what they have. And again, they are going to learn how to manage emotions. They are going to develop critical thinking. They are going to use visuals. So all those skills and abilities that we said that students need to develop because they have a different profile, they can do using a project, okay? And again, this is one way of doing things, right? Remember that the list I presented will have both the list with the characteristics of these young learners and the new competences can be longer. But these are some of the things that we can start doing like tomorrow, okay? And why is that? I have a quotation here. I really like this because I think when we work with young learners, we have to think that not only content is what we should look at, but we have to think of the environment. We have to think of this development, of these students' development from a broader perspective. And we have to remember that we learn best from those with whom we are in a caring, mutually respectful relationships that promote independence. I really like this because all we want is our students to be autonomous and independent at the end. So they are successful, they can do things, they are critical, and they know why they are doing what they are doing, right? I'm going to finish here with our, if you want to know more about Troika, you can visit us. There is a link for the Troika Experience 2023 that you can look at. We're going to have lots of guests and speakers. And in the QR code, you have more information for the membership, okay? Thank you so much for being here. Hope you have some new ideas for next week to start applying next week with your young learners. Thank you very much.